The death of single-player games is a topic that continues on. Personally, I think there will always be a place for games like this, but who's making them and supporting them may not. Electronic Arts showed last year investing a lot of money into a single-player linear Star Wars game was something they did not want, something they realized more than halfway into the development of Visceral Games' Uncharted-like Star Wars game, which was being headed by industry veteran Amy Hennig. Unfortunately, companies like Electronic Arts and Activision Blizzard aren't looking to put big money into single-player experiences. They're looking for what's most profitable, and multiplayer games offer numerous avenues of revenue, so that's what they chase. And it's not just those two companies following this route. Many other publishers have showed a reluctance to investing big money into single-player games. Anyway, recently Amy Hennig, who is no longer working with Electronic Arts, instead starting her own indie game development company, gave her thoughts on big AAA single-player story-focused games, making a claim that she feels these games are not sustainable. Speaking at GameLab 2018, she hosted a panel along with Mark Cerny and was asked by the audience, there was quite a dilemma a few months ago about EA and this question of whether single-player games are dead. What do you think about that? Hennig would reply with, to be fair, they didn't actually say that. I think that, like everything in our world today, the bad versions get around the world before the truth can get its pants on. Did Churchill say that? I think so. It's really tough. Sean talked about that in relation to Sony. God bless Sony for supporting these kinds of games, because they're terrifying to make. They're very expensive, and it doesn't suit the model of making a massive open world or hours and hours of gameplay or running a live service, which is what everybody is shooting for these days. It's not that we're looking at the death of single player games or that players don't want that. Some publishers are going to fall on one end of that spectrum or another based on their business plan. Fair enough. It's just that the traditional ways we've done that are getting harder and harder to support. That's why I've talked in the past about feeling like we're in an inflection point in this industry. We've talked about this for a long time. How do we keep on making games like this when they're getting prohibitively expensive? We don't want to break the single player experience, but there's pressure to provide more and more at the same price point games have always been. That is not sustainable, I believe. I think it breaks the purpose of a single player game. I was saying to some people here, I play games because I want to finish them. I want to see the story. I like the arc of a story. I don't see the ends of most games. How crazy is it that we say it's about narrative, but we make games where a fraction of the audience sees the end of the game? That's heartbreaking. I hope that we see more shakeup in the industry. We'll open up the portfolios, maybe with a subscription model, so we can see that there can be story games that are 4 hours long at an appropriate price point. We have digital distribution. That should be possible. We shouldn't be stuck at the brick and mortar price point and trying to make more and more content, breaking the spirit of these games. I don't fault EA for that decision, as hard as it was personally for me. I understand the challenge. We have to come at this in different ways. I think it's about portfolios of games at different price points that allow us to do more than just PUBGs and Fortnites and Destiny clones. Well, for one, an Electronic Arts executive last year pretty much said people are not interested in linear games anymore, which was their reasoning for shelving Visceral's Star Wars project, which is obviously a BS reason that no one is buying, as we saw with the success of a game like God of War that released just months ago, and there are numerous other examples. Hennig in the past has pointed blame at streamers for taking away from sales of single-player games, which I don't agree with at all, but in this case I do understand what she's trying to say. Expectations are much higher nowadays. Just look to the open world genre. The Reset Era forums featured a whole thread of users saying a game like Red Dead Redemption is boring and empty. My issue with that is, 8 years ago that game was revolutionary for the genre, and now people just expect so much from each and every single game. I will say though, even with that said, a lot of the publishers like Electronic Arts and Activision getting behind multiplayer microtransaction experiences is purely because of greed and trying to make sure they maximize profits. They could support and build a phenomenal single player game, but they choose not to because it's cheaper and they'll probably make more money creating Destiny and Fortnite clones. Look at what Activision did with Black Ops 4, killing the single player campaign mid-development to focus on Battle Royale and multiplayer, or even EA with Command & Conquer Rivals, creating a cheap, low-quality, mobile-only title that exists to suck players' wallets dry off in-game microtransactions. As I said at the beginning, I do believe there will always be a place for big single-player experiences, although who's making them probably will be changing. challenging. I do like Hennig's idea of smaller, cheaper single-player experiences like Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice that came last year, and I wish companies like Electronic Arts would consider something like that with Star Wars, but they won't. To use a baseball analogy, they're not aiming for base hits or to get on base, they're aiming for home runs with each and every title that comes from their studios. If BioWare was put in charge of a small, high-quality, 6 to 8 hour linear, single-player game maybe for $25, gamers would buy and play it. But it's all about profits with Electronic Arts, and for them, that probably would be a waste of time and resources, which is just unfortunate. Anyway, what is your opinion on the debate surrounding single-player games? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or found any informative value, and also consider subscribing for much more content like this, and I'll see you later.